In this demo, we will look into how we can partially update a resource with patch. We're back in our points of interest controller. Patch is signified by the HTTP patch attribute. The template return type and parameters are comparable to a full update, except for the request body. That's a JSON patch document. JSON patch document is defined in Microsoft ASP.NET Core.json patch. So let's import that namespace. A JSON patch document, which is essentially the list of operations we want to apply to our point of interest, so the change set, works on a specific type. So what is the type we want to patch? There's two ways we could go about this. We could go for point of interest for update TTO or a point of interest TTO. Let's have a look at the point of interest TTO first. This has an ID, and you do not want to allow an update to change the ID of what you're updating. That would no longer match with the ID we pass in the URI. So if we go this way, we need an additional validation check. It's possible, but we'll have to manually check whether the ID from the resource URI is the same as the ID that's passed through, or we have to ignore the ID that's passed through. The other way is applying the patch document to a point of interest for update TTO. This already includes the validation annotations, and it doesn't have an ID. So as far as validation of input is concerned, this is the better option. But it does mean we need an extra transformation. We need to get the matching point of interest we want to update and map it to a point of interest for update TTO before applying the patch. That is because if we accept a JSON patch document that works on a point of interest for update TTO, we cannot apply it to a point of interest TTO. Personally, I prefer to use this approach, as it's more in line with what we've done up until now. But if you don't like to work with different DTOs for different types of actions, just remember to check that the patch document doesn't try to change the ID. In our action, we check if the city and point of interest can be found. If not, we return not found. This is getting quite familiar, right? Then it's time to apply the patch document. The patch document, as we've just decided, works on a point of interest for update TTO. So we need to transform the point of interest we got from the store, which is point of interest from store, to a point of interest for update TTO. So we simply new one up and copy over the respective fields. And it's to this variable that we can apply the patch document. To apply a patch document, we call apply_to on the patch document. The object we want to apply the patch document to is our point of interest to patch, so that's what we pass through. This will work, but what if something's wrong with the patch document? We could have created a patch document to change a property that doesn't even exist, for example. We want to know about that, because if that's the case, the consumer made a mistake and we need to return a bad request. Well, if we pass in the model state to the apply_to method, any errors of that type will make this model state invalid. So we do that, and afterwards we check this state, and we return a bad request if it's no longer valid. This is something we manually have to check. Seeing the patch document is only applied here, the automated data annotation checks on deserialization and the automated returning of a bad request, thanks to the API controller attribute, don't have an effect on this. If the model state is valid, the update was successful. So the rest of the code is exactly the same as for the regular update. We copy over the property values and we return no content. Let's give that a try. I've got a few patch requests lined up here. We're going to start with a simple example. What you see here is a patch request to change the name of New York City's Central Park. As we learned, the patch request's body contains a JSON patch document, which is an array of operations. To change the name, we passed through replace as the operation, /name as the path, and the new value for the name. Let's send this, and we get back a 204 no content. That's looking good. Let's try getting New York City's Central Park. And the name was indeed updated. Let's try another one. A JSON patch document consists of a list of operations. So we can add another operation. This time, we don't only replace the name, but we also replace the description. That's replace as operation value, / description as the path, and the new value for the description. Maybe we should change this to updated again. Like that, we'll see that both replace operations will go through. A 204 no content, that's looking good. Let's get this point of interest. And there we go, name and description have both been updated. Now let's try sending an invalid request. An update, a patch for a property that doesn't exist, / invalid property. We get back a 400 BAT request. That seems okay, right? The fact that we see this is because we passed through the model state when we called into apply to on the patch document and then checked whether it was valid or not and potentially returned this BAT request. That being said, something seems to be missing. What about our validation annotations on the DTO itself? The required annotation and the max length annotations. Let's try a request that would lead to a validation issue. We're going to clear the name. This is a required field, so we do not want this remove operation to succeed. Let's send it. We get back a 204 no content. It seems like it succeeded. Let's try getting this point of interest. And indeed, the name is null now. That's not what we want. But why does this happen? Let's go back to our code. Here we check if the model state is valid, and apparently it is. This model state contains errors that happened when patching because of mistakes in the inputted model. But the inputted model isn't the point of interest for update DTO. The inputted model is a JSON patch document. So as long as this document is valid and can be used for patching a point of interest, the model state will be valid. What we need to do, additionally, is check if the point of interest for update DTO is still valid after applying the patch document. To manually validate, we can use the try validate model method, passing in the now patched point of interest for update DTO instance. This triggers validation of our model and any errors will end up in the model state. If an error happens, it returns false, so if that's the case, we return a BAT request containing the errors. Alright, let's try that again. Here's our patch request to remove the name. Let's send it. And this time we do get back a 400 BAT request. The error is that we should provide a name value. And as we remember, this is the custom error message we applied to the required attribute. So with that, we've learned about patching for partial updates. As we've seen before the demo, it can also be used to manipulate arrays, to copy or move values and so on. It also works on dynamic types, allowing you to actually manipulate your objects by adding or removing properties at runtime, so it's really powerful. There's one more HTTP method we have to look into, delete, for deleting resources. Let's have a look at that.